We all remember the man who made the whole world laugh without speaking a single word, but almost no one knows the silent war he fought behind that unforgettable face. This is not the story of Mr. Bean. This is the story of Rowan Atkinson, the boy who grew up in silence, the man who carried invisible wounds through fame, the father who lost the home that held his happiest years, the friend who buried pieces of himself with every goodbye, and the survivor who walked away from death twice. Before you judge the legend, walk with the human being who paid for every laugh with a piece of his own strength. Because behind the world's funniest man, we lived a life that was anything but funny. Sometimes, the greatest legends begin not in confidence, but in silence so heavy it nearly breaks a child before he ever learns to speak. That silence was the world Rowan Atkinson was born into. He arrived on the 6th of January 1955 in County Durham, a quiet rural place in the north of England. His family was simple, hard-working, and private. They lived without luxury, without comfort, and without the noise or excitement many children grow up around. But the biggest shadow over his birth was not poverty. It was tragedy. Before Rowan could even open his eyes fully to the world, his family had already suffered a loss that would shape the atmosphere of his childhood in ways he would only understand years later. Rowan's eldest brother, Paul, died in infancy just weeks before Rowan was born. This loss cut into the heart of the family. His father, Eric, who was a strict but responsible man, carried the weight of that grief quietly. He was the kind of man who worked with his hands and believed that hard work was the only solution to life's problems. After the loss of his child, his way of coping was to work even harder. Long days, cold mornings, and constant physical strain became his routine. His mother, Ella, was softer and more emotional, but she also kept her pain quiet. She had 3 other boys to care for, and now a grieving husband, so she hid her heartbreak behind her daily duties. Rowan grew up in a home where love existed, but sadness sat in the background like an invisible family member. The family lived modestly. Money was tight, and every bit of comfort was earned with effort. Eric split his time between running the family farm and working in a factory. He came home tired, often too tired to notice how his youngest son struggled to get even a simple sentence out. Ella tried her best, but between housework, 4 children, and the emotional weight she carried, she could give only gentle reassurance, not solutions. By the time Rowan was 5, it was clear he had a severe stutter. His words would get stuck in his throat. He would open his mouth, and nothing came out. Sometimes only a sound would escape, not a full word. His brothers were more outgoing and talkative, and Rowan often felt left behind. He wanted to speak like them, but every attempt left him feeling embarrassed and frustrated. At school, his struggle became even more painful. Children noticed how he paused at the beginning of sentences, how he sometimes looked like he was fighting his own tongue. They teased him, imitated him, and called him names. Some picked on the way his face moved when he tried to push through a difficult word. One classmate even called him alien, a word Rowan would remember for the rest of his life, because it made him feel different in a way he didn't know how to fix. These experiences pushed him inward. He started choosing silence because silence didn't hurt. Silence didn't humiliate him. Silence didn't make other children laugh. He avoided reading in class. He avoided answering questions. He avoided speaking unless he absolutely had to. Teachers sometimes mistook his quietness for shyness or lack of confidence, but Rowan was fighting a battle they could not see. He wanted to participate. He wanted to speak, but every attempt felt like walking into a trap. Yet, inside this painful silence, something unexpected was growing. Rowan became more observant than other children. While they talked, he watched. He studied expressions, movements, reactions. He paid close attention to how people behaved, how faces changed when they felt different emotions, how small gestures could communicate things words never could. Without realizing it, He was building a skill that would later become the foundation of his entire career. The turning point came when he was around 13. His class was asked to do a small performance. Rowan dreaded it. Speaking in front of others felt like punishment. But when he stood on stage and slipped into a character, something shocking happened. His stutter loosened. Words that usually felt trapped came out smoothly. He spoke with rhythm and control. His teacher was surprised, and his classmates were silent, not with mockery, but with disbelief. Rowan himself later described the moment as feeling like a door opening inside him. For the first time, he experienced a strange freedom. When he wasn't himself, when he became someone else, his stutter lost its power over him. Acting didn't cure his speech problem, but it created a temporary doorway out of it. This created a confusing emotional mix. On one hand, he discovered something he was good at. On the other hand, he realized he needed to hide behind characters to escape his real-life struggles. Still, the discovery changed his teenage years. He began participating more in school plays. Every time he stepped into a role, he felt relief. Every time he stepped out of it, the old fear returned. As a teenager, Rowan lived between two worlds. In one world, he was the shy, the quiet boy who struggled to say his own name without hesitation. In the other world, on stage, he could speak, express, and feel alive. This contradiction shaped him deeply. It taught him that silence could be both a prison and a tool. It taught him that the thing that made him suffer could also lead him somewhere unexpected if he trusted it. Over time, this created a resilience inside him that was almost invisible from the outside. Not loud, not aggressive, but steady. The kind of strength that grows when someone refuses to give up, even when life keeps pushing them down. By the time he reached his late teens, Rowan did not fully understand what his future would look like, but he knew one thing clearly. Performing gave him a sense of freedom he found nowhere else. But the same silence that once tried to break him would soon lead him into a world he never knew existed. A world where the very thing he feared most would become his secret weapon. Before greatness takes the stage, it usually stumbles through years of closed doors, humiliating auditions, and a battle against the self. That is exactly what Rowan Atkinson went through during his university years. Even though he carried insecurity from childhood, something unexpected happened when it came to academics. He excelled. Schoolwork made sense to him in a way people didn't. Numbers didn't laugh. Equations didn't judge. Engineering didn't require perfect speech. It only needed concentration. This allowed him to grow quietly in an area where he felt safe. After finishing school, Rowan went to Newcastle University to study electrical engineering. He enjoyed the structure and logic of the subject. For the first time, he felt a sense of control. Engineering did not care about confidence or social skills. It rewarded patience and intelligence, two things Rowan had plenty of. He became known as a bright and disciplined student, even though he remained withdrawn. While other students enjoyed parties and social life, Rowan preferred staying alone, reading, experimenting, or writing small comedic ideas in notebooks. These ideas usually had no dialogue, only movements, expressions, and strange characters. He did not know it then, but he was building a language only he understood. After graduating, he moved on to Oxford University to complete a master's degree in control systems. Oxford was prestigious, intimidating, and full of confident people. Rowan often felt like an outsider there. Everyone seemed so sure of themselves, yet he was still fighting to say sentences without freezing. He began a PhD as well, but deep down, he wasn't sure if this path truly belonged to him. Engineering gave him safety. Performing gave him freedom, and he did not know how to choose between the two. He joined the Oxford Drama Society, hoping acting would continue giving him the same escape it had given him in school. But it wasn't easy. In everyday life, his stutter was still strong. During rehearsals, he often struggled to introduce himself or explain his ideas. When he acted as a character, the stutter disappeared. But the moment he dropped the character, the stutter returned. This created a painful inner conflict. He wanted to perform, but auditions became his biggest enemy. Casting directors were often impatient. Some were polite but uninterested. Some stared at him awkwardly, waiting for him to finish a simple sentence. Others dismissed him quickly. A few even told him directly that his voice wasn't suitable for acting. These moments cut deeply. Each failed audition made him question whether he was chasing something impossible. The BBC rejected him multiple times. They said he was too strange, too silent, too unconventional. To Rowan, these words felt like echoes of his school years, when children mocked his expressions and stillness. Now adults were doing it too. This constant rejection took a toll. One winter night at Oxford, Rowan sat alone in his small student room, feeling a sadness he had kept hidden for years. He had engineering books on one side of his desk and half-written comedy sketches on the other. It felt like two futures staring at him, each demanding a choice. For the first time, he truly thought about giving up performing for good. He began to believe the world simply had no place for someone like him. He questioned whether his dreams were unrealistic. Maybe he should finish his PhD and follow the safe path everyone expected him to take. Maybe it was time to forget acting entirely. But life has a way of bringing the right person at the right time. In 1976, Rowan met a young writer named Richard Curtis. Richard saw Rowan perform at a rehearsal and was stunned. He felt something unique, something powerful. While most people only noticed Rowan's silence and oddness, Richard saw sharp intelligence, perfect timing, and pure comedic ability. For Rowan, this was the first time someone outside his family recognized his gift openly. It was a small spark, but it came when he needed it most. With Richard's encouragement, Rowan joined the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in 1976 and later again in 1979. These performances weren't always successful. Some audiences loved him, some were confused, some walked out. But with every show, Rowan learned more about what made people laugh. He discovered that silence, awkwardness, and physical expression could communicate far more than words. His childhood experiences, the bullying, the observations, the years of watching instead of speaking, all became tools for his craft. He was slowly creating a new comedic style without realizing it. During this time, he developed two early projects, Atkinson People and Canned Laughter. These weren't big hits, they didn't make him famous, but they were important because they helped him shape the character ideas, timing, and facial control that would later define him. They were the first seeds of the new comedic language he was inventing, a language built on expressions, gestures, and silence, a language the world would soon understand instantly. These projects also brought him more experience and confidence. Although he still felt insecure in his daily life, he was building a separate identity on stage. He was slowly becoming the performer he had always wanted to be, even if he still doubted himself off stage. Every rejection pushed him to refine his technique. Every failure taught him something new. Behind the quiet and hesitation, a more powerful version of Rowan Atkinson was growing. He didn't realize it yet, but he was preparing for a breakthrough that would change the direction of British comedy. But the world had barely begun to glimpse the strange, brilliant force inside him, a force that would soon rewrite television history. What looks like triumph from the outside often feels like survival on the inside. That truth shaped Rowan Atkinson's early years with the BBC. After years of rejection, he finally got a chance to join a new sketch show called Not the 9 O'Clock News. At first, it was far from a success. The early episodes struggled, the audience wasn't sure what to make of it, and critics didn't hold back. Some even questioned whether the show had a future at all. But slowly, through trial and error, the team discovered the right mix of humor, timing, and daring ideas. Once it clicked, the show exploded into a breakthrough hit. People started recognizing Rowan's talent especially the way he used silence, physical expression, and strange characters to create laughter without needing many words. However, success came with emotional wounds. In the first season, one of the original performers, Chris Langham, was suddenly removed from the show. Rowan had admired him and believed he belonged in the group. When the BBC decided to let Chris go, Rowan fought hard to keep him. He argued, he pleaded, and he took risks by disagreeing with people far more powerful than him. But nothing worked. Chris was replaced, and the decision hurt Rowan deeply. He saw it as a betrayal, not only toward his colleague, but toward the team spirit he believed in. The incident left a mark on him. It introduced him early to the painful truth that success in show business often comes mixed with decisions that feel unfair and bitter. Still, Rowan kept moving forward. His growing reputation in sketch comedy eventually helped him land a project that would define the next major stage of his career, Blackadder. When the first series began, no one expected the challenges that followed. The show had a big budget and ambitious settings, but something felt off. The tone was uncertain, the writing wasn't sharp enough, and the production costs were so high that the BBC quietly considered canceling it after the first season. Rowan felt the pressure intensely. After years of struggling to break into the industry, he now faced the fear of losing his biggest opportunity. This crisis led to a reinvention that saved the show. Richard Curtis returned, and a new writer, Ben Elton, joined the team. Together they rebuilt Blackadder into something smarter, funnier, and emotionally stronger. Rowan transformed the character from a foolish medieval prince into a sharper, sarcastic, and quick-witted figure. The writing became tighter, the jokes faster, and the characters more defined. This change turned Blackadder into a national hit, but behind the scenes, the work was extremely demanding. Rowan's perfectionism grew stronger with every episode. He spent long nights rewriting lines, adjusting timing, and practicing his delivery over and over again. He did not trust talent alone. He trusted hard work. Sometimes he pushed himself so much that he barely slept before filming. He believed that every joke must land perfectly and that every scene must feel right, even if it meant repeating the same moment many times. This level of pressure slowly began turning into anxiety. Cast members later said Rowan often looked tense before takes, worried that something wasn't good enough. They admired him deeply, but also worried about how hard he pushed himself. As the show continued with Blackadder 2, Blackadder 3, and Blackadder Goes Forth, it became a cultural phenomenon. People quoted it, studied it, and considered it one of the smartest comedies ever made. Rowan's performances were celebrated not only for humor, but for precision and intelligence. Each new season increased the expectations placed on him. Fans expected brilliance every time. Producers expected perfect results, and Rowan expected even more from himself than anyone else did. The pressure reached its emotional peak with the final episode of Blackadder Goes Forth, set during World War I. It ended with a scene that moved the entire country. The group of soldiers, including Rowan's character, walked out of the trench for the final time. Instead of a joke or a punchline, the moment was quiet, respectful, and deeply human. Millions of viewers were stunned. The scene became one of the most powerful moments in British television history. It showed that Rowan was not just a comedian. He was an actor capable of carrying emotional weight with incredible subtlety. But while the public saw beauty and genius, Rowan felt exhaustion. Performing at that level year after year was draining. The expectation for perfection grew heavier. Every project brought more pressure. Every success created a new fear of failure. Even on days when filming went well, Rowan sometimes returned to his dressing room, feeling mentally tired and unsure. Fame did not comfort him. It made him more aware of how much he could lose if he made a mistake. This was the period when Rowan started to understand how fame can create a trap. To the world, he was confident, brilliant, and endlessly talented. But inside, he felt the weight of carrying a reputation he never asked for. He knew people expected greatness from him, and he worried constantly that he might not meet those expectations forever. His fear was not losing fame. His fear was disappointing the people who believed in him. Even though Blackadder brought him enormous respect and a strong position in British entertainment, Rowan felt pressure growing, not easing. Success had come, but it brought new responsibilities, new critics, and new doubts. He had proved himself, but at the cost of sleepless nights, emotional strain, and constant self-criticism. In many ways, his rise through the BBC was less about celebration and more about surviving the demands placed on him. Yet none of this pressure compared to what awaited him next, a character that would change his life forever, for better and for worse. He made the world laugh without a word, but every laugh came from a body slowly breaking. That is the real truth behind Mr. Bean, the character who became a global phenomenon and changed Rowan Atkinson's life in ways he never expected. Mr. Bean was not created as a huge project. He started as a small comedy idea Rowan had developed back in university, a character built from silence, awkwardness, and exaggerated physical behavior. But once he appeared on television in 1990, the world reacted in a way no one could have predicted. The character crossed language barriers instantly. Countries that had never heard of Rowan Atkinson suddenly recognized him as the strange, funny man who made them smile without using dialogue. The numbers were unbelievable. Mr. Bean aired in 245 countries. In the UK alone, each episode sometimes pulled in around 20 million viewers, something that was rare even for major dramas. Families watched it together. Children loved it. Adults loved it. People who couldn't understand English still understood him perfectly. Mr. Bean became part of global culture. Then came the feature film in 1997, which earned more than $250 million worldwide, and proved that a nearly silent character could fill cinemas around the world. On the outside, it looked like the peak of Rowan's career. On the inside, it came with a cost he carried more quietly than anyone ever knew. The character seemed simple, but performing Mr. Bean required intense physical effort. Every movement had to be sharp, exaggerated, and controlled. Rowan had to use his face, neck, shoulders, and entire body to express emotion. This meant pushing his muscles far beyond what most performers ever needed to do. The strain built slowly over the years. Filming long days left him with severe neck spasms. Sometimes he would turn his head and feel a sudden tightening that forced him to stop moving altogether. His jaw locked frequently because he held Bean's wide-eyed, childlike expression for too long. His shoulders and joints grew stiff from maintaining the character's awkward positions and energetic behaviors. Behind the scenes, he often had to ice his muscles between takes. Crew members sometimes found him rubbing the base of his skull or holding his jaw in an attempt to relax it. He rarely complained, but the signs of pain were clear to those who worked closely with him. What millions saw as effortless comedy was actually a demanding physical performance that pushed his body to its limits. And because the character relied on such precise control, any small injury or stiffness made filming even more difficult. As the years went on, the toll became heavier. By the time he worked on Mr. Bean's Holiday in 2007, he was no longer the young man who had created the character. His body reacted differently to repeated stunts, exaggerated movements, and hours of physical tension. Even a simple bicycle scene left him feeling drained. There are backstage photos from that time where he looks tired in a way fans never saw on screen. In some moments, he had to pause filming just to recover enough energy to continue. What the audience saw was humor. What Rowan felt was his body, reminding him that he could not perform like this forever. Despite all this, he pushed on. In 2012, he delivered one of his most iconic modern performances during the London Olympics opening ceremony. Sitting at a keyboard and playing a bored, uninterested member of an orchestra, he stole the show worldwide. His timing, expressions, and physical control were perfect, and millions of viewers laughed. But the performance, though short, required careful planning and physical focus. Afterward, he admitted privately that it took a lot out of him. His recovery was slower than it used to be. He felt the weight of age, strain, and years of pushing himself physically. This was when Rowan began facing a difficult truth. The Mr. Bean the world loved was becoming harder for him to embody. His joints were stiffer, his muscles protested more consistently, and the pressure of maintaining the same level of precision felt heavier each year. He loved the character deeply, but he also understood that continuing to perform Mr. Bean live action could eventually harm him physically. It was a painful realization because Mr. Bean wasn't just a role. He was a part of Rowan's identity and legacy. Rowan made a decision that many fans did not fully understand at first. Instead of ending Mr. Bean entirely, he shifted to protecting him. He began focusing on the animated version of Mr. Bean, where he could still guide the character and perform the voice while sparing his body from physical strain. Behind the microphone, he could continue shaping the humor without risking injury or exhaustion. For him, this was a way to honor the character without sacrificing his health. The animated series kept the spirit of Mr. Bean alive and introduced him to a new generation. Children who had never seen the original episodes discovered him through cartoons. The show succeeded globally, proving that Mr. Bean did not need a live-action body to make the world laugh. This move allowed Rowan to keep the character alive in a sustainable way, even though it meant stepping back from the physical role that made him famous. For Rowan, it was both a relief and a quiet sadness. He knew what the character had given him, but he also knew what it had taken. Mr. Bean brought Rowan extraordinary success, but it also brought years of physical pain and private struggle. People saw a joyful, silly character. Rowan felt the hidden cost behind every scene, and as time went on, it became clear that continuing at the same pace was not possible. The world only saw the laughter. Rowan lived with the effort behind it. But as the character soared higher than any comedy creation in history, Rowan's own world was quietly starting to crumble. Even legends who make the world laugh can suffer the heartbreaks they never saw coming. Rowan Atkinson's personal life shows how even gentle, intelligent people can face emotional storms they never expected. Before he became a global household name, Rowan had a quiet and sincere romance with actress Leslie Ash. Their relationship was simple and natural. Leslie was bright and confident, and Rowan was shy and thoughtful. Together, they balanced each other. Their time together gave Rowan a peaceful space where he didn't feel judged or pressured. But the relationship was short-lived. They were both young and at the start of demanding careers that pulled them in different directions. The breakup wasn't dramatic, but it left Rowan with a soft sadness because it had been one of the first times he felt emotionally understood. Life moved forward, and in the mid-1980s, Rowan met the woman who would change his life most deeply, Sunetra Sastry, a makeup artist he met through his work. Unlike previous connections, this relationship grew slowly and quietly. There was no sudden spark or dramatic beginning. Instead, it built itself through small conversations, shared moments, and a gentle understanding between two people who trusted each other. Sunetra was calm, grounded, and steady. Rowan, with his insecurities and quiet nature, found comfort in her presence. She brought warmth into his life, and he brought softness into hers. Their relationship deepened until they married in 1990. For many years, their marriage was stable, caring, and peaceful. They lived a family-centered life, especially after the birth of their daughter Lily in 1993 and their son Ben in 1995. Rowan became a devoted father. He rearranged schedules when possible, did school runs, attended plays, and kept his children's drawings tucked into books and notebooks. For a man who lived behind characters and struggled with emotional expression, fatherhood opened a part of him he didn't show publicly. Their home, especially their large, old Waterbury estate became a place filled with memories, laughter, and the kind of ordinary joy that becomes the heart of a family. But fame has a price. As Rowan's career grew, his schedule became harder to control. Mr. Bean's global success led to filming across different countries, long international trips, and months away from home. Even when he was physically present, he was often mentally exhausted. This slowly created emotional distance. It wasn't caused by lack of love. It happened quietly, almost without anyone noticing. Days became routines, routines became habits, and habits became long stretches of parallel lives. They still cared for each other, but the closeness they once shared began to weaken. The drift in the marriage wasn't sudden. It was a slow change, the kind couples often don't see until it becomes impossible to ignore. Sunetra carried the responsibilities of raising the children, managing the home, and holding the emotional weight of the family. Rowan carried the professional pressure of maintaining perfection in his work. Eventually, they found themselves living under the same roof, but feeling worlds apart. Then came the turning point that neither of them expected. During a theater production in London, Rowan developed a connection with actress Louise Ford. It didn't start with bad intentions. It started with simple human closeness, at a time when Rowan's marriage was already weakened by years of silent distance. But when the tabloids discovered this developing relationship in 2014, it caused a massive media explosion. Newspapers turned the private situation into a public spectacle. Headlines blamed, judged, exaggerated, and mocked. The story became entertainment for strangers who knew nothing about the real emotional landscape behind the scenes. For Sunetra, it was deeply painful. She was a private person, yet suddenly her heartbreak was exposed at national scale. But even in this situation, she carried herself with dignity. She made no public attacks. She did not blame or insult Rowan. She simply withdrew quietly and focused on protecting her children from the chaos around them. Her silence showed her strength, but also revealed how deeply the situation had affected her. The divorce in 2015 ended a 24-year marriage. But it didn't end the emotional weight that came with it. Rowan had to sell their beloved Waterbury home, a place filled with memories of their children's early years, birthdays, school mornings, and family routines. Walking through the rooms while packing up decades of life was painful for him. He wasn't just leaving a house. He was leaving the last physical reminders of the life they once built together. Losing a long marriage is not like losing a moment. It is like losing a part of your identity. Rowan later described the feeling privately as a phantom limb, something you no longer have but still feel every day. The absence becomes a presence of its own. Even after he began living with Louise Ford, even after their daughter was born in 2017, the emotional impact of ending his first marriage stayed with him. The guilt, the memories, and the regret all remained as quiet reminders of what had changed forever. Rowan continued to care for his children from both relationships. He stayed connected with Lily and Ben, supporting them as adults, while raising his younger daughter with a softer, more experienced approach. But inside him, the effects of the divorce remained. It shaped him into a more reflective person, someone who understood that emotional choices can create long-lasting ripples. His relationship with Louise continued steadily, but it existed alongside the public judgment that never fully went away. People often saw the headlines, but not the human complexities behind them. Rowan learned that fame does not protect a person from heartbreak. If anything, it exposes the pain more widely. And while this heartbreak was one of the most difficult chapters of his life, it wasn't the only storm waiting for him. Another loss was approaching, this time final and irreversible. Success can shield you from critics, but it cannot shield you from grief. No matter how famous Rowan Atkinson became, he still faced the same painful losses every human being must face. And for him, these losses came in ways that stayed with him for the rest of his life. His father, Eric Atkinson, had always been a quiet, hard-working man. He didn't express emotions openly, but Rowan knew his father loved him through actions rather than words. As Eric grew older, his health began to decline slowly. It started with short breaths, tired movements, and a general weakness that didn't match the strong man Rowan remembered from childhood. Doctors spoke gently about age-related issues, but everyone in the family sensed the truth. Time was slowly taking Eric away. During this period, Rowan traveled home whenever he could. No matter how busy his schedule was or how many responsibilities he carried, he made the effort to be by his father's side. They would sit together quietly, sometimes talking, sometimes saying nothing. For Rowan, simply holding his father's hand was enough. This was something he couldn't express well when he was young, but now, as an adult, he understood how valuable these small moments were. His father, who once came home exhausted from long days of manual labor, now rested in a chair with limited strength. Every visit felt important. Every goodbye carried a weight Rowan couldn't ignore. Eventually, Eric passed away after a long decline. There was no dramatic moment. It was a quiet end. But for Rowan, the grief hit deeply. He kept his pain private, as he always did, but those close to him saw the change. Losing his father left a silent emptiness that followed him everywhere. He continued working, kept appearing in public, and maintained his responsibilities. But inside, he was quietly shattered. The man who had shaped his early world was gone, and no amount of fame or success could protect him from that ache. Rowan had barely begun to recover when his mother, Ella, began her own slow decline. Ella had always been the soft, gentle presence in his life. She noticed his childhood stutter, comforted him when he was embarrassed, and understood his sensitive nature better than anyone else. As she grew older, she started experiencing memory problems. At first, it was small things: forgetting dates, repeating questions, losing track of conversations. But slowly, the forgetfulness grew into something more serious. It was painful for Rowan to watch. His mother, who had once been sharp and attentive, now struggled to stay connected to the present. Sometimes she recognized him immediately. Other times, she looked at him with affectionate confusion, as if searching through her fading memories to place his face. Rowan answered her repeated questions with the same patient tone every time. He knew it wasn't her fault. He knew she wasn't choosing to forget. But the emotional weight of seeing his mother fade piece by piece was heavy. As her condition worsened, Rowan visited often. He brought small gifts he thought she would enjoy: flowers, snacks, or things she once liked. Even when she forgot conversations minutes after they happened, he talked to her as if everything was normal. In 1998, the final stage of her illness arrived. Her memory weakened, her strength decreased, and her awareness of the world around her slowly slipped away. When she passed away, it marked the end of Rowan's connection to his childhood roots. Both parents were gone. The home he grew up in was no longer filled with their voices, their routines, or their presence. It was a deeply personal loss that he shared with almost no one. To the public, he continued working and appearing in interviews. But emotionally, he was carrying the weight of losing the two people who shaped his earliest sense of safety and belonging. He understood that grief does not fade quickly. It simply becomes a part of you. Losing his parents taught him that even a life filled with achievements and global love cannot protect the heart from the quiet, painful truth of mortality. But grief didn't end with family. It came again in a different form when one of Rowan's closest collaborators, Mel Smith, passed away in 2013. Mel had been a major part of Rowan's early career. Their work together on Not the 9 O'Clock News created a bond built through long rehearsals, shared laughter, and the excitement of trying new ideas. Their comedic chemistry was natural and strong. They understood each other in a way that made performing together feel effortless. Mel's boldness balanced Rowan's quiet nature. Together, they created sketches that later became classics. When Mel died suddenly of a heart attack, Rowan was deeply affected. He released a short public statement expressing sadness, but his real emotions stayed private. Friends said he was hit harder than people realized. Losing Mel felt like losing a part of his younger self. The early years of creativity, late-night writing sessions, and the thrill of building a career from scratch. Rowan found himself watching old clips of their performances. In each one, he saw the spark they once shared, the energy of youth, and the innocence of their early success. It reminded him how quickly time moves and how fragile life truly is. Through all these losses, his father, his mother, and his close friend Rowan experienced grief in different forms. He learned that fame cannot soften the pain of losing someone you love. Success does not make a person immune to sadness. And even the strongest performers carry their private wounds quietly behind the scenes. These experiences reminded him of how short life is and how easily the people we depend on can disappear. The grief didn't make him bitter. It made him more aware, more reflective, and more appreciative of the moments that truly matter. But fate had another lesson for him, one that would not come through loss, but through survival. Some lives are defined by talent, others by survival. Rowan Atkinson's life contains both. Behind the calm, private image he shows to the world, he has faced moments where life came dangerously close to ending. These near-death experiences changed him permanently and shaped the way he views the world even today. The first major incident happened in 2001, during what was supposed to be a simple family trip on a private plane. The sky was calm, the flight seemed routine, and everyone settled in comfortably. But without warning, the pilot suddenly collapsed. One moment he was in full control, and the next he was unconscious, slumped over the controls. Panic filled the cabin. Rowan, who was not a trained pilot, reacted on instinct. He rushed forward, pulled the pilot's body away from the controls, and grabbed the steering column. In that moment, Rowan had no time to think about fear. His only thought was keeping his family alive. He held the plane steady as it dipped and shook from the sudden change. He kept calling out to the pilot, hoping he would wake up. Minutes felt like hours as Rowan fought to keep the aircraft level. Even though he had no real training, he somehow managed to prevent the plane from diving or rolling. Finally, after a terrifying stretch of time, the pilot regained consciousness. He was confused, but alert enough to take back control. With Rowan still helping steady the plane, they managed to land safely. There were no reporters at the airport, no cameras, no dramatic celebration. The story was hardly made public at the time, but for Rowan, the impact was enormous. He had faced a situation where one wrong move could have cost his entire family their lives. Afterward, he experienced sleepless nights and unwanted memories of the moment when the pilot collapsed. Some nights he woke up thinking he was back in the cockpit, hands shaking as he tried to keep the aircraft steady. It wasn't fear of flying that stayed with him. It was the sudden awareness of how fragile life really is. Just 10 years later, another near-death experience struck, this time even closer to disaster. In 2011, Rowan was driving his beloved McLaren F1, a car known for its incredible speed and rarity. Only about 100 of them existed in the world. Rowan enjoyed cars not as toys, but as engineering achievements, and he treated them with respect. That night, however, the road was wet, and one small slip was all it took for the car to lose control. The McLaren spun violently, hit a tree, and then a lamppost. The impact was severe, and the car was almost torn apart. Within seconds, the front of the vehicle caught fire, and flames began to spread quickly. Dazed but conscious, Rowan realized he had only moments to escape. He pushed against the damaged door, crawled out, and moved away from the wreck just seconds before it burst into a massive fireball. The explosion was so strong it lit up the night sky and reduced the car to a blackened shell. The insurance payout ended up being the largest single-vehicle payout in British history because the McLaren was so valuable. But the money meant nothing to Rowan. What mattered was how close he came to not walking away. He suffered shoulder pain and minor injuries, but the emotional shock was far greater than the physical damage. For days after the crash, he replayed the moment in his mind, the loss of control, the violent impact, the crawling escape, the heat of the flames behind him. He rarely spoke publicly about the emotional effect, but friends said he became quieter and more reflective. He had always been thoughtful, but after the crash, he carried a deeper awareness of how suddenly life can change. It wasn't the car he mourned. It was the realization that a few seconds' difference could have left his family grieving instead of relieved. Both incidents forced Rowan to think differently about life. When you survive something that could have ended everything, priorities shift. Rowan began valuing simple things more: peaceful mornings, quiet meals, time with his children, long walks, and moments without pressure or noise. He became more patient, more grateful, and more aware of the importance of slowing down. He also became more protective of his privacy. After facing near death twice, he no longer felt the need to chase the spotlight. His work remained important to him, but his personal peace became even more valuable. These experiences also changed his understanding of stress. Fame, deadlines, and public expectations no longer held the same power over him. He knew that real fear wasn't criticism or pressure. Real fear was feeling a plane tilt in your hands with your family behind you. Real fear was crawling away from a burning car and realizing how narrowly you escaped. These moments stay with a person. They don't disappear even after the body heals. They shape the way you walk through the world. Rowan never became dramatic about what happened. He spoke about the incidents with humility, not as stories of heroism, but as reminders of how unpredictable life can be. He understood that he had been given two chances many people never get. This understanding softened parts of his personality. It made him appreciate the present more deeply. It highlighted what mattered and what didn't. It taught him that every day is borrowed time, and that what you do with it matters more than anything else. The near-death experiences didn't make him stop working or lose interest in creativity. They made him more mindful about how he spent his time, who he spent it with, and what he chose to focus on. They helped him grow into a more grounded version of himself, less driven by pressure, more guided by perspective. And as the scars faded, a new life began, one quieter, more intentional, but still carrying the weight of everything he had survived. After a lifetime of storms, the greatest success he found was not fame but peace. Rowan Atkinson, at 70, is a man shaped not only by his achievements, but also by the pain, pressure, and survival that built his character over decades. People often talk about his estimated net worth of around $150 million, but the money itself is only a symbol of a long career built through discipline rather than glamour. Rowan never chased fame for the sake of fame. He worked carefully, saved wisely, and made choices that reflected stability and responsibility. His financial success came from consistent effort, global syndication of his work, and a character who became one of the most recognizable faces on earth. One of the clearest signs of Rowan's need for peace is his home in Oxfordshire, a large modernist estate designed with simplicity and calmness in mind. The house is spacious, filled with clean lines and open areas, and surrounded by the quiet countryside he grew to appreciate later in life. It is not flashy or loud. It is calm, private, and structured, much like Rowan himself. This home became a sanctuary where he could rest from the pressures of the entertainment industry. It is a place where he can think, read, work on small mechanical projects, and enjoy time with his family without the noise of the outside world. Before this, Rowan lived for many years in Waterperry House, an old estate with strong ties to his family life. It was where his children grew up, where birthdays were celebrated, and where everyday moments became memories. Selling Waterperry after his divorce was painful, not because of the property itself, but because it symbolized the end of a long chapter of his life. Even today, he speaks about the house with fondness. It holds a part of his past that can never be recreated. The years when his children were small, when family routines filled each room, and when laughter echoed through the spaces he once called home. Rowan's love for engineering never faded, and it shows through his well-known car collection. Unlike many celebrities who collect cars for status, Rowan's interest is practical and thoughtful. He truly understands the mechanics behind each vehicle. His collection has included rare models such as the McLaren F1, Honda NSX, Aston Martin Vantage, and various classic cars. He drove them, studied them, and in many cases maintained them himself. His cars are not trophies. They are machines that connect him to his original passion: engineering, problem-solving, and precision. Even after his serious crash in the McLaren F1, his respect for engineering only grew stronger. At home, Rowan's personal life is steady. He lives with actress Louise Ford and their young daughter Isla. Their life together is simple and private. Rowan has softened with age, becoming more patient and gentle. With Isla, he is the kind of father who enjoys quiet moments, helping her with small tasks, listening to her stories, and giving her the stability he wishes he had understood more clearly when he was younger. His life with Louise is calm, not dramatic. They avoid the spotlight and protect their family from unnecessary attention. His relationship with his older children, Lily and Ben, remains strong. Even after the divorce, he stayed present in their lives. They respect him not just as a father, but as someone who has always supported them quietly and consistently. As adults, they have their own paths, but Rowan remains a steady figure they can rely on. The bond between them reflects the work he put into being a father, despite the demanding nature of his career. Rowan's daily routine is surprisingly simple. He wakes early, enjoys peaceful mornings, and often takes walks in the countryside around his home. He likes routines that do not involve noise or crowds. He often spends time tinkering with engines, small machines, or tools in his personal workshop. These activities help him feel grounded. They remind him of his early love for engineering and serve as a break from the high-pressure world he once navigated daily. He also reads often, thinks deeply, and keeps his schedule controlled. He values quiet more than anything now. Although he rarely publicizes it, Rowan has a long history of philanthropy. He supports charities such as Comic Relief, UNICEF, educational causes, and medical charities. He gives quietly, without using his generosity to promote himself. To him, kindness is personal. It is something you do because it is right, not because the world needs to see it. His donations and involvement often happen behind the scenes, in ways the public never hears about. As he has grown older, Rowan has developed a deep sense of wisdom shaped by both success and pain. Surviving heartbreak, losing his parents, escaping near-death experiences, and facing the pressures of fame have taught him to value the things that truly matter. He understands the importance of time, health, and relationships. He knows that perfection is not worth losing yourself over. He learned to accept that life is imperfect and that mistakes, losses, and challenges are part of being human. This acceptance brought him peace. He no longer feels the need to prove anything. He no longer worries about criticism the way he used to. He is comfortable with his legacy and grateful for the life he has lived, even with the difficult chapters. Rowan at 70 is a man who appreciates simplicity, embraces calm, and values safety and love above applause. His life now reflects a sense of balance that he waited many years to find. And, as he looks toward the years ahead, one question remains, not about the characters he played, but about the truth he carries in his heart.